All right, so in this video, we're going to take a look at creating triggers, animations inside of Unreal, as well as modeling a door using the modeling tools. What's great about this is, and we're also going to have an introduction to blueprints. And what's great about blueprints is that you can reuse them. That's kind of the whole point behind them. So what we'll do is I've got a couple doors here that I made for the demo. And what I'll show you how to do is maybe let's create the door that is sort of the opposite to this one. All right, so what I can do is we can start off by just looking at how we modeled this door. So I'm going to go and to the top here, and I'm going to grab a box, and I'm just going to place it here. Now, ideally, you would just reuse the mesh that's there, but I want to show you how I created that mesh. So I'm going to place it over on this side here, and I'm going to go down to Poly Edit, and I'm just going to squeeze this face so that lines up this way. And then I'm going to grab this face and just move it over to the center here, maybe a little bit. Give it a little bit of a gap, and I'm going to make it just as tall as this door here. Now, a lot of these doors are placeholder. You would probably do maybe a different kind of door, maybe a little bit more of an advanced door in a DCC tool. But a DCC, for those who don't know, stands for Digital Content Creation Tool. So my pivot point, what I'd like to do is, this right here, is if I hit spacebar, I can switch between them. Notice it rotates in a weird angle. I'd like to place the pivot point on the edge here. So just scroll down a little bit here and then just click on pivot and then just move it over to the side. And I want to kind of put it right at the center of that edge there between the door. And I'm going to go ahead and hit escape. Now when I rotate it, you can see that it rotates inwards. Now the value in which it's rotating, let's see if I can access that here. Let's see. Here we go. Notice it's rotating at a positive 90 value. Okay, so that's going to be important. We want to remember that later. But for now, let's go ahead and play with modeling this door. So I'm going to go to Poly Edit here. And what I'd like to do is maybe insert some edge loops. And so maybe just a couple. So we'll do one here, one right next to it, a couple in the middle, just kind of spacing it out. And then what I'd like to do is select each one of these faces. So I'm going to accept that and go back to Poly Edit here and then just select each one of these faces and just inset them in. So it can be kind of hard to see with this yellow, but if you zoom in a little bit, you can kind of see it a little bit better, right? So just kind of going from the center there out. And let's see. You can see that's there. You know, let's add one more loop. Just kind of really breaking that up. Going across this way. There we go. Now, when we select those faces, it should inset them, give us a little bit more spacing for the inset. So maybe something like that. I'm just trying to copy this door. And then let's extrude in just a little bit. Let's inset again. And then let's select these again and pull those out just a little bit. Let's take a look. If we move the pivot point, let's see. Looks like there's some residual stuff going on there. Yeah, kind of strange how it does that. But anyway, we've got another door here. Ooh, that doesn't look good. I wonder if they're just overlapping faces. All right, so we've got our door. I'm going to go ahead and accept that. Now, what I'd like to do is with this door, that does not look good at all. Ooh, looks like I lost it. Let's try that one more time. poly edit. I'll do this really quickly. Does not like that inset. Okay, that looks pretty good. There we go, okay. Maybe if we inset it again a little bit. Yeah, that's a lot better. Okay. So once the door is made, you want to right click on it and you want to go to browse to asset, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to rename this asset door 4 underscore panel. And what you want to name it is SM for static mesh. You always want to name it sort of BP for blueprint, SM for static mesh. And then I'm going to delete this box, and then I can just drag this into the scene like that. Now this, we don't really, we don't need it in our scene just yet because we want to create a blueprint out of this. Ooh, that door is huge. So, well, it might line up. Yeah, it's not, it's just the angle that we're looking at. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this door. And with this, remember this door 4 panel SM. So I had created a folder just by like right clicking on content here, and going to new folder, and I named it blueprints. And then within this blueprints, I created a folder called door. So I'm going to create another blueprint class here, and I want to make an actor class. And I'm going to name this 4 underscore panel underscore door and then new, because I've already made one just kind of for the demonstration. And I want to name it BP for blueprints. Now I'm going to double click to open up this blueprints. Now, if you're not familiar with blueprints, there's a couple different windows in here. I'm not going to explain it all now, but throughout the class, we'll get in really big detail with construction scripts and all that. But your viewport essentially is what it's going to look like in the scene. And then you have your event graph, which is how we're going to be doing the visual scripting. So like how we're going to be setting up the box collider and all that stuff. So notice if I drag this 4 panel door, let's see if we can kind of just go to selection mode, give ourselves a little more space. Notice when I drag this in there, there's nothing here. But in our blueprints, right, what we can do is I can actually go to, let's see, that door. Let's see if we can go to our meshes here. And I think under generated is where, yeah, here's the new static mesh door that we just created. I'm just going to drag that into this doors folder here, so that now it's in here. This is the 4 panel, door 4 panel SM. I can actually drag it from here into the scene, and I can drop it. And notice that it updated our blueprint in our scene, right? So like if I grab my panel door here and I move it up, notice it moves it in our scene. And so what I'm going to do is here, I'm going to edit it this way in my scene to line it up so that it doesn't mess up my blueprint. So I'm just I'm moving the blueprint. I'm not actually moving the static mesh. So what I'd like to do is as I walk into this door, I'm going to create something called a trigger. So you can see on this door here, I have a box collider. And what this box collider does is as I walk into that, it plays an event graph, right? So let's go back to our 4 panel door here. And I'm going to, without selecting either of these, I'm just going to add a box collision object. So here's our box collision object. And notice that it set itself to my pivot point. I don't really want it there. I'm going to move it up, and I'm going to move it to the center of my door. And if I hit compile, you'll see that it'll update here. Now I'm going to hit spacebar, and I'm just going to scale this up. Scale it like that, hit spacebar again, position it in the middle, hit spacebar again, and just kind of scale up that collision. All right, so now we have this box here, and then we have our 4 panel door, okay? Now I'm going to compile and save that. And let's go to our event graph. So let's maximize this. So this is sort of meant to be an introduction to sort of how to like use blueprints, right? So let's say that we want to create an animation, and what it is it's going to animate this door, right? So if we look at our viewport here, and if you remember before, if we moved our object, let's see, here's our door, positive 90, right? So let's type in 0 here for the location, but for the rotation, if we typed in positive 90, notice that it rotated out this way, right? Which is what we want. We want it to rotate inward. Well, how do we animate that inside of blueprints? Well, in the event graph, what we can do is we can right click and we can type in add time, and that adds a timeline. And what's cool about this is you can actually animate the movement of your door with the timeline, right? So let's say event begin play, we can play from start just to test this out. And what I'll do is I'll go inside of here and I'll add a new float track. And I'll right click on here and I'll add a keyframe. And what I'm going to say here is at time 0, our door is not moving. But at about 1 second, so time, let's type in 1 second here, I'd like my door to have a value of 90. So what it's going to do is it's going to enter the value 90. Let's go ahead and click on both of these so that we can see our entire animation here. It's going to input a value of 90 somewhere by the time that it gets to the end of this thing. We don't know yet where we're going to enter that value of 90. Now to get a little bit smoother or nicer animation, I'm going to select both of these and I'm just going to add an auto key. And that way we can play with our tangents. So we get a nice smooth curve there. So those of you who've taken animation class might be familiar with the graph editor in Maya or something. But for now, just kind of understand that like this gives us a little bit cleaner of a thing versus a linear movement. All right, so, and I don't expect you to retain that. But back to our event graph here. Now contained within it is this timeline. So if I compile this, it's going to save it. I can close this out. But remember I mentioned that at the end of 1 second on the timeline, it's going to hold a value of 90. Well, what can we do with that? Well, what I can do is I can actually grab this door and drag it in the scene. And there's different attributes that I can access. So for example, I can access the, let's see, relative, let's see, maybe we should do, yeah, we'll do like relative rotation. So what that stands for is the relative rotation. Well, here, it actually gives us connection to the door, so I can delete that here. So what it's saying is the relative rotation of this door, and I'd like it to be plugged into the z-axis, which is this axis right here, right? So if I select my door, here's X, Y, and Z, right? And I want it to go 90 at that axis. So the relative rotation here, but you can see I can't access this. I'd like to drag the track inside of here, right? The track is this. See how it's called track 0? So the way to do that is you can right click on here and you can split the structure into 3 pins. And I can drag and drop that in here, and then I can grab my update here and connect it this way so that once the event begins to play, that means I play my scene. From the start of it, it's going to rotate my object. Now it might rotate really quickly. So let's go ahead and press play. Now mind you, in this scene, I went ahead and I moved, let's see, my player start right in front of the door. So let's move it a little bit here. So now when I hit Alt play, you can see that that door played right away. Unlike this door where I walk into it and it triggers. Well, let's make sure that we have the same thing going for this door, where if I walk into either door, they'll trigger or open. So let's go back to our blueprints here. And I hope I put it in here. So our 4-panel new blueprint. Now I don't want to just begin playing right away. I want to use this box collider. So I'm going to select my box collision here, and I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to do an on component begin overlap. Now the thing here is, let's move these way out here, so we got a little bit more space. Now notice, I'm sorry if I'm kind of late on this. If I scroll my wheel in and out, I can zoom. If I'm holding my right mouse button, I can pan. What I'd like to do is, as some object, which is my blueprint third-person character, collides with this object, I'd like it to play that timeline animation. So what I can do is I can drag out this other actor pin, and I can type in BP, and you can see cast to blueprint third person character. And you can also just right click on your grid and then type in BP, and you'll see cast to panel door, and then cast to blueprint third person character. So as I walk into this box, I want to play that animation. Now, there's also this nifty thing where I can reverse this. So as I exit this box, so let's do an add component end overlap here. I'm gonna drag that over here. So as my character here, so let's copy and paste this here. And the other actor that I want to walk into it is here. So as this character leaves the box, I want it to reverse my animation. So as I enter, it'll play the animation, and as I reverse, it'll exit. So if I save this and I compile it, now if I hit Alt-P, notice it didn't play right away. I can walk into this and I can walk out, but it's like really fast. Like notice if I walk into this one, it holds for a second and then it closes. Well, what I can do is I can add a delay node. So I'm going to right click and just type delay. And I can say, hey, you know what? I'd like this to delay for 1 second. Right? So it's delaying for 1 second. So if I hold Alt and click, I can break that. Drag this into here, and I can say I'd like it to reverse after 1 second. So let's hit save and let's compile this. And now when I press play and I walk into this door, you can see it opens. I can open this door separately. If you wanted to, you can have both doors hooked up. Now they close, you can't, it's going to open the other way. So what you can do is you can animate a closed one separately, right?